Hello and welcome to this live web TV show where today we're looking at the impact of Brexit on travel between the United Kingdom and mainland Europe. There are can you believe it, less than 6 months to go, 29th of March, and speculation is rife among politicians, commentators and the public. There is some confusion. There are an awful lot of questions as well. That's what we want from you today. Your questions, you can use the box on your screen. Any questions you want to put to our guests, please meet our esteemed panel. We have with us the independent travel writer Simon Calder. Good to see you, Simon. Edmund King is the president of the AA, and Jay Hopkins, sales and marketing director at Eurotunnel. And Jay, let's just start with that business of questions. Everybody has a question. It seems there are few answers.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of questions at the moment about whether people are going to need to do any other prep or anything extra before their holidays next year. And so we're doing this today and making sure there's a space on our website where people can make sure they get the most up-to-date information about anything they need to know to do with Brexit and their travel questions. And we're just going to make sure that we keep that up-to-date as new news comes in.
Because you've become, because you're sort of in the zeitgeist of people's thinking when it comes to travelling into mainland Europe. So naturally you've become an area where people have kind of flocked to almost to ask those questions.
And particularly when they take the car. I mean, 40% of people driving out of Britain for their holidays come on our shuttles through Eurotunnel. So we know it's important to our passengers. A lot of them bring pets with them as well, another thing that's important.
We'll come on to the pet issue, quite topical at the moment. Simon Calder, you told me a few years ago, Simon, you were fed up writing about the Costa del Sol. Well, your dream has come very true, because now you're writing a lot about Brexit, particularly what's going to happen with travel.
Yeah.
We've all got a lot of concerns about this. Landing cards, passports, pets.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely fascinating to see the survey conducted by Eurotunnel, looking at what people were uncertain about. And it's coming down to the 3 Ps, I would say: passports, pets and permits for driving. Just to tell you what's known, and we're fairly familiar with what's going to happen. So at the moment, you've got a British passport, European Union on the top. Up until the 29th of March next year, it's going to be valid for travel anywhere in the EU up to the day that we leave. After that, it will continue to be a British travel document.
So you'll still be all right?
Yeah, well, we're not quite sure about what the arrangements will be for going to Europe, and it may be that you need to have a certain amount of validity left. So by kind of early next year, if it's clear that we're going to need some kind of permit system, then you might want to renew if your passport's about to expire, particularly if you're going off maybe for an Easter trip, which will happen just after Brexit.
You've got your old passport.
Yes.
From the 30s, is that? Yeah,
that's right,
there
yes.
Simon Calder, I know you're not showing us the photograph.
So a lot of people are expecting that we might get these back. It's not going to be like that. We're going to get something which is the same size as this, and we're looking forward a year from now, but it's going to be blue, and it won't say European Union on the top. And the stipulation is, the reason we can't go back to this, nothing to do with Belgium or Brussels or the EU, it's purely that the International Civil Aviation Organisation in Montreal say a passport must be this shape and it must be flexible and all the other stuff. Yes, it's true.
My goodness.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to help people by telling us what we know. And
presumably, if you like the old part, what is the current passport, you could renew yours just before the 29th of March and have that for another 10 years.
You certainly could, but I think it's always worth, as soon as you've finished watching us, go and have a look and see when your passport expires.
When it runs out.
Always good to know.
Edmund King from the AA, of course. I would imagine, again, your members and motorists generally up and down the country we're scratching our heads thinking, what is going to be our rights? Are we going to get into France and a gendarme's going to be chasing us down the motorways of Western France because we've got the wrong documentation?
Well, indeed, it is interesting. I mean, we have noticed more traffic to our website, people looking at what they do to travel to France, etc. But, much of it isn't going to change at all. We will still need good travel insurance. You should still have European breakdown cover. I guess the 2 questions people are asking us are about their car insurance and about their driving licence. So On car insurance, there may be a case, you will still be covered in Europe, but there may be a case that you might need a green card. And all the green card is, it's basically just saying your insurance is valid in Europe. There's no charge for that, although might be an admin fee, but that hasn't been decided yet. The other thing, on your driving licence, your UK driving licence...
Because like the passport, that is a European driving licence,
It is. So what we're hoping is that the European Union recognises the UK driving licence as valid to drive in Europe. If they don't, and we don't know that yet, you might need an international driving permit. But that is relatively easy to get. You'll be able to get them at the post office. They cost £5.50, and all you really need is to turn up with your current driving licence. So, you know, we still will, as car drivers, be able to go to Europe. I was in Brussels this week talking to the European Commission and talking to other European motoring clubs, and they were saying, we want you guys, we want Brits to come over, you know, because of the tourism, and we want to visit your country. So, in effect, it's in all our interests to just sort out this paperwork and make it as smooth as possible.
And Eurotunnel, I mean, you guys are there regardless of all of this, aren't you? Because your arrangement is a whole different thing in the sense that, you know, between France and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, the Canterbury Treaty was signed in 1986 and is valid to 2086.
Which is why we have the French cops over here and the British cops over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And as Simon said earlier, we're hoping that all Brexit questions will be solved by 2086.
That would be quite nice, at least if we were halfway there by that stage, wouldn't it? What's interesting, the amount of freight and families that use your service, of course, it's not just people, but pets. And when we alluded to that at the very beginning, and I know there were some statistics this week, and people very concerned about are they going to be able to take their dog or their cat or whatever when they go abroad. You know, lots of families do travel with pets as well.
Yeah, it's really important, really important to our customers. So in the summer this year, 1 in 9 cars that went through the tunnel had a dog in it.
That's
so
a lot.
It's huge, isn't it?
That is
People
a lot.
really want that. You know, their dogs are part of their family.
Yeah.
My dog's part of my family.
Same applies, I must say, on behalf of other pets, to cats.
I'm sure. I haven't got one of those.
And to ferrets. These are the three animals that are covered, but mostly it's dogs, I agree.
It is mainly. And lots of people travel as it is, and they have their pet passport, and they know the rules that are apply around that pet passport. In fact, we've had 2 million dogs through the tunnel since the pet passport scheme was introduced. And the government confirmed this week that we will still be able to take our dogs, our cats and ferrets, to the EU from the UK and vice versa for holidays next year and beyond. So that's really good. That's been confirmed. The question is just whether there's going to be an extra step that's required. If we get a no-deal situation, then there might be one extra step that's required. And so DEFRA came out this week and said that they recommend you talk to your vet 4 months in advance if you are going to travel to the continent. So I think particularly if you're travelling very soon after the 29th of March, it's as well to get in contact with your vet soon.
And Simon, do you own a ferret, by the way?
I don't.
Just to establish this.
But it's good to understand what the rules are, and just as with Eurotunnel being obliged to operate shuttles between Folkestone and Calais, come what may, until 2086. So I'm getting a lot of people saying, well, what happens with flights to the EU? And must be said that while there's certainty about Eurotunnel, there is no certainty yet about flights. There's no official arrangement by which, after the 29th of March next year, you can have flights between the EU and the UK. All the airlines and the airports and the government say, we're sure something will be worked out, but at the moment it isn't.
That's a bit disconcerting when the government say that, isn't it? You'd like to think that somebody somewhere is sorting it out.
Look, there's what's the phrase? Nothing is agreed till everything's agreed.
That's very true.
There's a few things yet to be agreed, but we know that as a last resort, you will still be able to take, as Jay was saying, you will still be able to take your animal to France, but you just might need to plan a little bit sooner.
Yeah. So things will change.
Yeah.
We want your questions, of course. You can use the box below to write any questions to any of our panel here. One came in from Peter asking, interestingly, about, I don't know which one of you wants to take this, about duty free, because of course there's still that perception we all have about you go to the continent and you can bring back a few cheap bottles of vino.
That's a really good question, because a lot of people, when it was announced that we were going to be leaving, because that was the vote of the people, thought, great, we'll get duty-free back. Now, there's no actual certainty about what will happen, because the rules will be set by the UK government, and they might say, as they do now for everybody from outside the EU, right, you're limited to 2 litres of spirits and a couple of litres of wine and a certain number of cigarettes and so on. Or they might say, tell you what, if you're coming in from France, then you're allowed the same as now, which means you can load your boot with a couple of cases of that very nice claret. But I understand you've been doing a bit of work on this.
Yeah, we've been looking at it as well. We've got retail outlets at the terminals in both France and the UK at the moment. And previously, when duty-free did exist, we managed that at Eurotunnel. We've also got a click and collect offering, so people can go online and choose what they're buying and then pick up their shopping as they come through the terminal. And so if we do get duty-free back, there will be ways that we can manage that fine.
I'd imagine that's probably going to be quite a common question on your website as well, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Is duty-free safe with all of this? This comes in from Edgar, who says, Dear team, what will this change mean for people living in Europe and want to travel abroad to England and also want to take their pets with them as well? It's interesting because, of course, you know, it's a two-way street, isn't it, Edgar?
Well, that is interesting, because that was a question I was asked in Brussels this week. You know, what about people who've got European driving licences? And actually, it's good news for them, because the UK government has said they will recognise European driving licences. Yeah. So whereas there's still a question whether we'll need an international driving permit, our European compatriots won't need one. They will be able to come across. So they were quite pleased with that.
And it's the same deal with pets, actually, that the UK government have said they won't increase the pet checks for getting pets back into the UK. They'll be the same as they are at the moment. So the only question is whether there'll be an extra thing that needs to be done, this extra jab or something to go out.
Really. We're very, very accommodating to everybody. Your pets are fine, your car's fine, your licence is fine, your duty-free is good, everything is good. Linda says, are they going to change the pet passport rules, or are we going to be the same as the Scandinavian countries? If they do charge, pet owners will need 3 months' notice. Are we going to get to this point? Because there was some, I mean, you never know with newspaper stories whether they're scare stories, but I saw a few stories this week that suggested it could cost you 50 quid, it could cost you 150 quid, one said 350 quid. To get Simon's ferret across the border, is it really going to be costing hundreds of pounds?
It's a DEFRA announcement, that's why we've seen it in the news, and the only reason they're announcing it is because a deal hasn't been done, and the sort of worst case scenario, if you like, is this one extra thing that would need to be that would be required in the case of a no deal. And so and it does take a few months, as the person asking the question asked. So that's why they've put that information out now. I mean, a lot of us are concerned about this word delays that we keep hearing, Operation Stack and all sorts of other things that may or may not happen, which is out of the control of most organisations, but it could be a reality. The beauty of jumping on Eurotunnel is, that you drive on, off you go, you drive off, fantastic. Well, in terms of paperwork, Jay, I mean, I can remember coming back from Europe, you had to fill out landing cards, of course, pre-EU arrangements. Are we going to be in that sort of place where drivers are going to have to sit there filling out reams of paperwork before they get back onto Eurotunnel? It's interesting. We already have 100% immigration checks at the borders on the way to UK and France at the moment at Eurotunnel, so we don't foresee any change in the amount of time it takes to get people through the border security. There might be some changes to bits of paperwork that are required. It looks like if there will probably be transition periods in which everyone agrees that we don't change it straight away. But it's one of those things that until it's decided we won't know, and that's why we're keeping that information on the website right up to date. And we know that we'll be told in plenty of time if there is an extra bit of paperwork that's required. Naturally, lots of concerns about, Eurotunnel is working fine, but there could be a big old queue to get on because, of course, we hear about Operation Stack, the M20, and manoeuvres going on the M26 the other week as well.
Certainly, and there's a lot of concern in the county of Kent about what it might mean. However, if you're travelling to Folkestone in order to go on Eurotunnel and you're travelling as a family, you're maybe on business, going to your house in France or whatever you're doing, then you will be in a separate compartment, as it were. The freight operation and the passenger operation are entirely separate at Eurotunnel, and while we have seen in the past, for all sorts of reasons, very often to do with industrial action in France, long queues building up on the motorways here and Operation Stack taking effect, that hasn't generally impinged upon people who are travelling privately.
Sure. And Edmund, from an AA perspective, I mean, you've clearly got your eye on this.
Yeah, indeed.
Kent is the chief recipient, of course.
We've been in
lorry queues.
discussions with Highways England and the Department for Transport, and yes, they're looking at things like a contraflow on the M20. They're looking at more facilities along the M26. But as Simon alluded to, if you actually look back when we have had disputes and delays, quite often it hasn't been to do with the border. It's actually been blockades by French farmers or lorry drivers the other side. So it hasn't really been anything that's linked to Brexit. It's been industrial action. But, it is good that contingencies are in place. But I think for the majority of motorists, it should be fine.
Here's a question from Christina, who says, will I need a visa to travel to European countries that are currently part of the EU? If so, will this affect the time it takes to board the trains and make the journey time on the whole longer and maybe more expensive, Simon Calder?
Well, I will ask Jay to talk about the effect on the exact border controls, but let me talk about where we are. So at the moment, this document entitles you to go into the EU at any stage you want to. You just turn up and all they can do is say, yep, that looks like you. You're going to be allowed in. Now, from the 29th of March 2019, nobody has yet said what the arrangements will be. It's entirely possible there will be a transition period till the end of 2020, in which case things will continue as they are. Looking ahead 3 or 4 years, I think I can predict exactly how things will settle down. We'll have our blue passports. We will need to sign up for the European Travel Information and Authorization System. This is called ETIAS for short, and it's basically the same as the American ESTA scheme. So you go on, you pay a bit of money, €7, about £6. You then get a permit valid for 3 years, but every time you want to go to Europe, whether that's just nipping over to Calais to do some shopping or because you want to go on a great 3-month road trip, you're going to have to go online and register your intentions. And my sense is that, yes, there will be a little bit more bureaucracy, because at the moment when you go to the through Eurotunnel at Folkestone, you've got French officers there checking everything. That's normally a very quick process. That might be slightly extended, but Jay would know better than I.
Yeah, well, as I said, we've got 100% immigration checks both ways at the moment, so we don't foresee
that doesn't change.
It doesn't change, exactly.
They will remain, and they've been there forever anyway.
Yeah.
So. Here's a question from Samantha, who sent this via our Facebook page. Will I need a visa to go to Paris? I mean, one of the beauties of travelling quickly to the continent was the idea that you could have a day trip to somewhere like Paris. And as a kid, we all thought, this is a whole other place somewhere. It's a holiday, surely, at best a weekend. But the idea that you might have to have a visa to travel somewhere we've got used to being able to do just in a day and come back again.
Look, there is a theoretical possibility that Europe might turn around and say, right, you are... we're not going to treat you as anything other than a third country, and with the most extreme, most onerous rules, which require you perhaps to have a visa and a passport that's valid for at least 6 months. But I think that's very unlikely. Europe does extraordinarily well out of British tourism, and therefore I think they will be doing all they can to make sure that things continue as smoothly as possible. And yes, if you want to jump in the car in Kent and drive down to Paris, have some lunch and then come back, that, there might be a 1 or 2 little extra ingredients that you need to go through. But the principle that we've established over the past 24 years, how long has it been going?
24 years.
24 years is that everything is to do with ease of movement.
And I suppose one would hope, Jay, that whatever bumpy road there might be initially over the next few years, that arrangements and the like will be worked out, and there'll be new things in place that will allow a little bit of that fluency to continue.
Yeah, I don't think that it will, even in the short term, that the information that we're seeing coming through is that even in the case of a no deal, it won't have a significant impact on the flow. And that's just as well because customers are booking holidays.
Yes.
You know, you were saying that the UK travel market...
It's remarkable how much confidence there is out there. The travel industry as a whole is telling me that bookings are up 10-15% on next summer compared with where we were in November 2017, looking ahead at summer 2018. So people want to continue to travel, and I imagine that what we're seeing in the industry in general is also reflected at Eurotunnel, is it?
Our bookings show the same sort of pattern as last year, slightly up on last year. Our customers know they get the best deals if they book ahead, they book early, and so we're seeing that trend continue.
Because you listen to some of the doom mongers on either side of the argument, and they sort of have you believe that we're going to all remain in a static position somewhere. Clearly, people are still going to go on holiday. People are still, Edmund, are going to be travelling. Freight and haulage is not going to stop. At some point, it all has to move and carry on.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. There are other countries that aren't in the European Union that travel into the European Union on a daily basis. I was talking to my Swiss counterparts last week, and they kind of reassured us, yes, there are some changes, some gradual changes that take time, but we still have access to the countries in the European Union. So I think it will be the same. There may be a little bit of bureaucracy to kick off with.
Because it's not in anybody's interest, is it?
Absolutely
There's
right.
no
It's in all our
interested
interest.
party that would say it's a good idea just to all stop.
Yeah,
That would
I
just be
think
great.
that's absolutely right. It's in all our interests to have trade, to have tourism going both ways. The European countries make a lot of money out of our tourists, particularly in the summer season and indeed the winter skiing season as well.
You were saying, though, that we should get GB stickers for
Yeah,
our cars.
that is one thing, actually, that I think we can
I
say
remember
with some
those as a
certainty.
kid.
Yeah, we
GB
should have
stickers.
GB stickers because many cars out there at the moment, many modern cars on the registration plate have got a European Union
course.
flag. But we will also need GB stickers. So I think we can say with some certainty,
The GB sticker is back.
Yeah,
My
GB
goodness.
stickers. I'll tell the AA shop to restock
Obviously.
before Brexit.
Samantha Bolter says, will you have to book in early on the Eurotunnel, earlier than you do currently, Jay?
No, we've got the government are committed to keeping that all as frictionless as possible, and we've got no reason to believe that it will be anything different now. So at the moment, we ask people to check in 45 minutes before their shuttle leaves, and it will continue to be the same.
That's good.
I think the whole notion, because there is uncertainty out there, that suddenly travel will be transformed or taken back to a kind of the way it used to be, all a bit clunky, is misplaced. I mean, luckily we have technology on our side now.
Sure.
We're used to the idea that we're more mobile than we've ever been, more opportunities to travel, and I think we're not going to kind of surrender that, and it's simply a matter of keeping track of what is happening. And I would urge people not just to go online and search for Brexit, driving licence, passport or whatever, but actually be careful about the sources that you are using. So the government's put an awful lot of information online. In addition, organisations like the AA and companies such as Eurotunnel are also putting together the essential information that you need and keeping it up to date. And I would always go to a reputable source like that rather than
that's
just...
That's a really good point. I mean, when I host phone-ins on the radio and do lots of debates on this stuff, and it is terrifying where often people's source for a very serious point is their mate Bob down the pub. Now, I'm sure Bob is a very informed man, but he's probably got it from somebody else who saw something on Twitter, who told somebody else, and their neighbour explained it to. You've got to really try and authenticate your
sources. There are
sources.
differences driving in different countries, but we've got it all on the website. So in France, you might need a reflective jacket, you might need a warning triangle, you might need a small breathalyzer. In certain countries, in winter, if it's snowing, you need winter tyres. But that's all on the website, and those things currently exist, so they won't change. And there are a number of things like that, and it's worth getting that advice before you travel.
Yeah, and it actually does make you feel a little better. I mean, speaking to you guys now, and I feel much happier than I felt all day, frankly, after this conversation, because it is getting the correct advice, Jay, that's really important, isn't it? And not just speculation or, you know, someone's political slant on it, to actually get what is actually going to happen.
Absolutely, and that's why at eurotunnel.com/Brexit we are putting the kind of main questions that people are asking and making sure that those are right up to date with any information that's coming through, including the links to the government sites and to other sites that might help people.
So you've got kind of questions and answers on there, and also links to other places that might be helpful as well.
Exactly right.
Eurotunnel.com/Brexit.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Listen, guys, thank you so much. Thank you to Jay. Good to see you. Thank you to Edmund, Simon as well. Thank you. And of course, for all of your questions as well. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.